Guys, welcome back to Analyze and Educate. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Week 6. What do we make of week 6? Personally, honestly, the least amount of quarterbacks we've seen in a minute, despite a couple of these guys making cameos and whatnot. Really, I mean, it was definitely I don't want to say a letdown. I think that's a over simplification. I think it might be an over dramatization. A good defensive play got started off, obviously, Battlehawks and Renegades 12-6 in that game. Not a lot of high score. I think we just got spoiled in week 4 and week 5. And, I believe we saw some good stuff towards the end. And, especially in that Stallions and Brahmas game, in which the actual quarterback play was exceptional, in which the throws, the reads, but we saw a lack of execution in several factors. And honestly, that's always going to impact the stat line. You had Max Duggan hitting Hakeem Butler down the end zone. Jaden Price makes a good play, but that's a touchdown off the board. We'll talk about it a lot with Kevin Hogan. He threw a couple dimes in there. There's no other way to put it. He threw a couple dimes, and nothing happened. It's a drop. A drop is a drop, just as good as an incompletion. Same thing kind of when you throw a screen pass 6 yards and it goes for 76, still 76 yards. The good and the bad of the quarterback play. But overall, really like some of these guys kind of coming into their own, some regression, some questions, and whatnot. But ultimately, another good week of UFL football for about half the games, in my opinion. Fun to watch, all that good stuff. Getting started into our quarterback rankings, we have 2 honorable mentions. Holton Ahlers coming in that Rhino Elephant big boy package, doing a great job handing the ball off to, I believe it was Davion Smith. No, it wasn't. It was actually Day Hunter when they ran it. Kalen Balaj is out. It looks like, from what I'm understanding. So he'll be missing an extended period amount of time. So you might see that 2-headed monster of Davion Smith and Day Hunter taking the majority of reps. But a lot of people calling for Ahlers to start. James Larson of Pro Football Newsroom, he asked Bob Stoops, is it possible that Ahlers can start taking reps? Stoops said no. It was going to be, the Luis Perez show. To an extent, I'd agree with. I've been on this for a little bit, really because of Ahlers being a little bit more mobile. You do want to run some RPO with him. Last year, they used Lindsey Scott in that De'Aaron King role. I believe Scott had only eight pass attempts throughout the year, several rushes. Would have liked to see that with Ahlers this year. Once again, he is a lefty, can roll him out, changes up the way things. You haven't showed it yet, except for one pass attempt. And this league is the league of opportunity. Obviously, Perez has regressed a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but something to note, last year, he did go on a tear. I know Perez has only 3 touchdowns this year. I will say he did have 3 called back through holdings and, illegal touching and all that good stuff, which one of those holding calls, by the way, they messed up the player. They said it was Austin Falou when it was really Freedom Akim Moladoon, who was the person being held. So a little bit of nonsense on that, in my opinion. But ultimately, Ahlers, I think, deserves a shot. Something to note, by the way, last year they had Lindsey Scott as the active quarterback for the first 8 weeks, and then they went to Ahlers, who was QB3. This year, maybe they do that with Luke Lennon, and, we might be able to see Lennon get an opportunity and whatnot. Our other honorable mention, Danny Etling. Danny Etling came in for 2 plays. One was that final kneel down. The other was him when Bryce Perkins made his Josh Allen-esque play. Etling came in, handed the ball off to Nate McCrary. Really nice to see that Mike Nolan is all in on the Bryce Perkins show. We're going to talk about that more. Why? If you watch the games this week, you're probably pretty sure about where he ends up. But those are 2 honorable mentions this week. Now let's get into our normal standardized rankings. Our number 10 quarterback this week, the only reason why I give him a ranking is because the way I do my rankings, by the way, is your honorable mentions get the next number. So Holton Ahlers, 11, Danny Etling, 11. So in order to, when we do our final rankings at the end of the year, helps Perry out a little bit. He does come in. Dresser Win takes a monster hit, no penalty. And Edling comes in, goes 1 of 2, 7 yards, overthrows, I believe it was Kwame Lassiter, that could have easily been a touchdown. Came in, able to push the ball into, a little bit closer in the field goal range. Just a decent job. He gets our number 10. Obviously, the Showboats will be captained by Dresser Win the rest of the year, bearing injury, which is the way it needs to be. But good to see EJ Perry come in, just kind of, fiddle around, get a little bit of film, stay loose, stay ready, stay proactive, and ultimately didn't do anything to hurt the team, minus possibly overthrowing, and obviously they lost 21-20. Our next quarterback on the list, Luis Perez. He's going to be our number 9 guy. Goes 16 of 23, 145, 1 pick, 2 carries, 3 yards. Obviously took a decent amount of sacks, had 2 forced fumbles on him. Perez looked uncomfortable, and this is exactly what the Battlehawks had to do in in their first matchup. They did it against Perez. Peter Tamapenu, Isaiah Mack, Chris Garrett, that whole defensive line group really bringing the pressure on to Perez, getting jittery. He can't move. And ultimately, those were the results. Now, Perez does still look efficient, effective. He's able to analyze a lot of these defenses and does a really good job. But unfortunately, he's got no time. And they were missing their Jake Johanning. He was starting the last couple of games. Makeshift offensive line. Minor, their right guard, 4 penalties and whatnot. I think the total offensive line penalties they had was 6 or 7. Garrett McGinn doesn't start. That's not a formula to succeed as a team, and that's not a formula to succeed as a quarterback. In addition, you lose Kalen Ballage for the game. You really don't use Davion Smith that much. I believe they should. It just kind of says his conditioning and everything like that. Very confused on why they didn't really incorporate Smith in there a little bit for those tough yards that they've been doing on short yardage. He only had 1 carry for 2 or 3 yards. But that's not going to be a formula of success to succeed. And it's unfortunate because, Perez, he still has ability, still made some great throws. Obviously, they had a touchdown called back on Lawan Whittingham's illegal touching. But that's the reality of the situation they're at. They're 3-3, 2 bad losses, in my opinion. Need to really step it up in these next couple weeks. They're done playing the Battlehawks. They got one more game against DC. See what happens. But ultimately, not the best look, especially because, they've lost close game to DC, lost close game to Birmingham, lose a close game to St. Louis after beating up on St. Louis by about 15 points, especially on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team that if they make the playoffs, they're obviously a dangerous threat. They can beat anyone on any given day, just like any team, obviously. But it's unfortunate because you do have the 14 playoff 2-2 from the best conferences. They may be the outside looking in. Our number 8 quarterback this week, Max Dugen. Last week I had him at 2. Had 1 long rush, another one for about 8 or 9 yards, had 10 carries for 49, 7 of 19, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Screw it. Hakeem Butler somewhere on the field, right? He threw a dot to Hakeem Butler in the red zone. We did talk about that. Ultimately, to me, this throwing motion, and I will say the Frank Darby miss, I would put on him as well. But this throwing motion is going to kill Dugen, and this wind up in the pitch that he's doing with runners on the corners looking like Randy Johnson out there has obviously been mocked by NFL personnel, by meme accounts, whoever. Dugan's best threat is obviously going to be his legs. His mechanics are jacked up. His timing is off. It creates and allows other defensive backs to kind of get that extra second once they see him cocking and loading. Dugan's got the tools to make this team an effective playoff team. I think they can beat DC with Max Dugan, but it's going to be on his legs. And unfortunately, at some point, you are going to need him to throw the ball. Doesn't look good all the time doing it. But when you do have that 6'6" receiver, you got some weapons, really get Jacob Sailors involved more. He had some tough rushes. That interior of the offensive line between Gonzalez, Panasuk, and Beecham, all studs. These tackles, they can't move their feet. They lean on people. Ineffective play. Now you got Bradley Ashmore who's figuring it out. Mark Colombo knows how to coach offensive line. He knows what he's doing. He's he's got 3 perennial all league guys in the interior. But unfortunately, on the edges, it's forcing him to step up. And when you're a quarterback, if you can't find that crease, it's not going to be a great game. Living by and dying by Manny Ball. The erratic runs, the athletic ability. It's fun until it's not. And even though they got the win this past week, Dugan's got to make a couple better throws. He's got to be a little bit more resilient, in my opinion. If not, you really wonder if you can run a two QB system there and have Silvers kind of take it, from 20 to 20 and then Dugan punching in. And maybe on like 3rd and 16, have Dugan in there, throw a screen or something like that, like let him run around. Yeah, do defensives know that's going to happen? Probably, but go ahead and stop it because they know it's going to happen when he's in the game for all 4 quarters and they're still having trouble stopping them. My number 7 quarterback this week, Andrew Peasley, making his professional debut. If you don't know about Andrew Peasley, he's a Wyoming quarterback. I believe he transferred from Utah State. Makes his first professional appearance. Battled it out with Adrian Martinez for the QB3 spot in Jets preseason last year in 2024. This week goes 5 of 8, 79 yards, 2 carries for 10 yards. Guys, he is the 4th Birmingham Stallion quarterback to play. That's a lot. 2023 they had 3 play. 2022 they had 2 play. Last year they only had the 2 play. Jamar Smith was a QB3 all year last year. Peasley comes in, shows the athletic ability. He's got a Magoo style. He's got a Martinez style. He can run. He can move. Made some quick throws. Made some nice passes. Really liked what you're seeing, especially Case Cookis has an injury, an owie with his knee. Peasley comes in, does some good stuff, gets him inside the 10. I think they were at the 6 or 7, and then gets hurt on the RPO. Says his knee's loose. It's not good. You don't think you're going to have this guy in week 7. I know they got Magoo back, but now you're bumping up Jamar to QB2. You got Cookis, nursing a knee as QB1. Magoo comes back in week 8. You're out of the roster spot, man. And this is not a good time to need a quarterback if you're a UFL team. And the reason why is because right now rookie mini camps are starting. And because rookie mini camps are starting, all these guys who are working out for these NFL teams, they're not going to want to go to the UFL right now. I made a list on UFLnewshub.com talking about some of the possibilities. Went from, NFL vets like Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, UFL guys from last year like Brian Lewerke, Drew Plitt, Tom Flacco was one of them, to guys from the USFL and XFL in 2023 like Caleb Elby, Montel Cozart, to even 2025 guys who weren't asked to go to the rookie minicamp. The only one I could really think of that you would know of is Hudson Card from Purdue, spent time at Texas, had like a 5-touchdown game, 2023, had a pretty decent showing from what was told at the Colts Pro Day. But that's the only guy I can honestly think of that anyone would, kick tires about for this week 7 cameo. But even so, you still need a guy. If I can call anyone, I call Kyle Slother just because it'd be funny. I think it'd be a good little thing for him to do for the weekend. But Jamar's traveling back to Dallas. He's going to fly, be there this week. It's not a good look. You're glad Peasley's out there, but crazy enough, fun fact, Birmingham is going to sign their 6th quarterback of the year. You have Magoo, Corral, Jamar, Peasley, Cookis, and now number 6. Check out that article. That link is is below. My number 6 QB this week. I'm watching the game. I'm pumped up. You're seeing the yards. You're seeing this. You're seeing that. You're seeing Chris Rowland run all over the field. And you sit back and you look at the score, and they only scored 14 points. Jordan Tamu last week was number 3. He goes 19 of 36, 259, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 5 carries, 17 yards. Abram Smith looks like a shell of himself right now. They're using Jackson more. Chris Rowland moving him around, making plays. Jadon Mickens, Braylon Sanders, but they can't punch it in. Can't punch it into the end zone. It's a shame. It's too good of a football team. Michigan's good, don't get me wrong, but they are too good of a football team. Sad part is, I think at one point, Tamu through like 14, 13 passes, over 75%. Finishes 19 of 36. It's unacceptable. Barely at 50%, if that. You're not going to win games like that, guys. You're not. You need to take the checkdowns. You need to continue to progress through the reads and everything like that. The team is too good, and Tamu is too talented to put a stat line like this. He's leading the league in yards. It's great. Love that for him. But they have evolved into, a little bit of Jameis Winston is minus the turnovers. Teamu's completion percentage this year is 50.2. He's thrown 11 touchdowns, 4 picks, 1,400 yards. Leads Perez by about 1,330. Leads Perkins in touchdowns by about 3. Not by about 3. And mind you, he's thrown the ball about 83 times more than Perkins and about 40 plus times than Perez. Perez got more completions than him. He's sitting at a 70.8. Perkins at 72.3. Perez and Perkins 121 and 94 respectively. The Teamu's 107. 42, 43 more times throwing the ball, man. That's not a DC Defender offense. They have shied away to who they were in 2023 that made them so great. Yeah, I know Tamu won the Offensive Player of the Year in 23. I don't know how he got that. DiNucci throws 2,600 yards plus another 300 and change on the ground. Yeah, DiNucci had turnovers. McCarron, 25 touchdowns, 26 touchdowns, something like that. Is what it is. It was in the past. We moved to the present. But in order for this team to win a championship, they need to get back to that 2023 style of offense they played. Shannon Harris was there. Fred Keiss was there. Act like you can't call Reggie Barlow. You still got Liam Fortinell there, Mike Minetti. You still got guys who are a part of it. You know what I really think? Derek King had a lot bigger impact on this team. We talked about it a little bit last year, but people say, oh, they lost the receivers and this and that. UFL, man, you're going to lose players all the time. People are going to get signed. That's your job. Guys are going to realize the same for them. Kiki Cutie, 100 yards in an NFL game. Not bad. Chad Hansen couldn't even crack the starting 5, 100 yards in an NFL game, like 50 career catches, something like that. Thanks, but no thanks. Cut. Plays special teams for the Battlehawks. It was adorable. Him and his TikTok wife, girlfriend, whatever. In the end, they need to get back to that 2023. You hope that Jackson can get you there. Abram Smith, you got to figure out something with him. It's unfortunate. Guy has persevered coming back from the knee injury. Doesn't look like the same player. Averaging about, I think it's like less than 3 yards a carry, 2.6 yards a carry. Hasn't hit pay dirt. It's not a formula for success. I don't see them winning many games going at 50.2% completion percentage, especially when he's only thrown like 2 or 3 interceptions. Just a lot of duds, a lot of underthrows, man. A lot of underthrows. Man, if he pulls this one out, we're bumping him up over his counterpart on this. But Dresser Win, man. You got to love what you see with Dresser Win. Number 5 QB in his second start, losing to the upstart Roughnecks. You really got to like what you're seeing out of him. 22 of 34, 207, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 3 carries, 16 yards, showing the mobility, showing the lack of fearlessness. Was a lot better as far as completion percentage and whatnot, especially in the early part of the game. Really liked it. Really, really liked it. I think he's like 20 yards away or 40 yards away from, surpassing EJ Perry in passing. Probably going to do that in his 3rd game, God willing. It's been great. It's been competitive. And despite their losing, they're still fun. It's a way more fun team to watch than last year. Offensive line issues, obviously. Some bad breaks. Still learning how to, really assess pass protection at the line. A lot to like here, though. Good omen. I mean, with him being young, I just don't know if he comes back. I don't know if he just doesn't kick up to, goes into the, gets an NFL opportunity. gets him back in the cycle? I'm not sure. But what I am sure about is that he's extremely fun to watch. They play the Battlehawks next week. Going to be a real good test. He's going to go up against one of the better defensive fronts in the league, and we'll see what happens. Showboat's 1-5, but overall, way more competitive to watch this year. My number 4 QB this week, Jalen McClendon, Houston Roughnecks. Didn't play crazy, explosive or anything like that. Does a real good job of avoiding the rush. 20 of 28, 149, a touchdown, 5 carries, 4 yards. And while his rushing statistics might not have blown you away or anything like that, the ability to kind of just evade, fight for another down, not put you in a 2nd and 17 instead of a, 2nd and 10. The ability to do that is kind of what, in my opinion, Houston was missing before. Mostly with Anthony Brown. I think Nolan Henderson did a good job of making plays and, moving around in the pocket and just kind of keeping people on their toes. Yeah, no, 100% Nolan Henderson ability to do that. But Jalen McClendon's got this rocket of an arm that Henderson doesn't have. And because of that, yes, sometimes he struggles with the meaning of touch, but other times he's able to make some pretty dynamic throws. And I love on that 3rd and 8, the ability to push forward and because of that, just trust in the system, trust in the quarterback. And I don't know if that's Eric Price. I don't know if that's CJ. I don't know what that is. But in the end, it worked out for them. And McClendon walks away with another win. So much fun to watch. And now Houston is 3-3, banging on the door of possibly being a playoff team. Do I think they get it? No. No, I don't think they can win in spite of CJ Johnson. But what I do think is that as they continue to go through the season, as we continue to watch them, I think we're a little bit, optimistic. They take on the Stallions this week, gut a couple weeks ago. We'll see what happens. McClendon, fun to watch. Houston, not too bad, but they do got that guy, Zaquandre White, very high up on him. Looking forward to see what they do against the Stallions in Birmingham at Protective Stadium. Man, I might get a little bit of heat for this, but I don't care. Kevin Hogan was the best quarterback that I saw this week. Just wish his receivers knew a little bit. That's not true. Bryce Perkins was, and we'll talk about Bryce in a little bit. But Kevin Hogan, extremely competitive to watch. First play of the game, going deep to Justin Smith. Jacob Harris with a bad drop. I counted 4 drops. That, based off my math, would have added another 100 yards of offense for them and possibly, at least 1 touchdown, but, drive extenders and whatnot. Jacob Harris, bad drop at the end. John J. Kirkland, we don't need to talk about that. Very uncharacteristic of him. A couple more. Marquez Stevenson had a drop on the skinny post. I think that would have went for like 17 or so. So, yeah, he left 100 yards on the ball. Throws a bad interception. Clear miscommunication there. Wide receiver stopped running. I don't remember which receiver it was. In the end, like a lot of these teams, a lot of poor offensive line play. Running game wasn't as effective as you like it. Hogan still got a little bit of mobility back there. I really hope they continue to ride with him, push him into the next week. Kept him competitive to an extent. Defense got to make some plays. Obviously, some poor tackling. Looks like they're a little tired and whatnot. During the press conference, there was talk about quitting and all this stuff on the team. I don't think the Brahmas have quit because your resume is built off this time here. And I get really upset when I hear people ask about, do you think the team quit? Well, if they quit, they should be gone. And the reason why is there's so many people out there looking for an opportunity to play in the UFL with the chance of getting into the NFL that it is a privilege to play in the UFL. I would argue it might be more of a privilege to play in the UFL because there's less opportunities there than the NFL. Can't really get comfortable. Everyone gets paid the same. You just got to deal with some of the minutia, the BS, the traveling, the hub, this, that. Can't have roots. You got to get an Airbnb. You can't live at home. A couple of these guys have moved to Texas. it's a crazy dynamic, man. These guys playing in the UFL, and if the ability for any of these dudes to quit on their team, quit on guys fighting to get in there, it's not my jive, man. I don't think I really hope none of these boys are quitting, but they take on DC at home. Um, hopefully it's the Hogan show, Hogan's Heroes. Can they win? Yeah, why not? They did it before. Shake up the league a little bit. They go 4-3. Be something. I don't know, but I think they're doing a lot of good stuff there. I believe it was Kugler or Klatt, whoever said it, having the air quote adult in the room just to settle things. I mean, Hogan's got good command of the huddle. Let's not forget the guy ran for over 100 yards in an NFL game. I don't even think he was the starter of that game. I think he came in relief of Deshaun Kaiser, but plenty of weapons on that team. Too many good players on that in the skill position. The offensive line's a little bit suspect. Obviously, Alex Millette gone and whatnot, but you're excited to see what Hogan can do. And it's not so much for Hogan, it's for these receivers, giving them the best opportunity. I believe Anthony McFarland also got injured, so we'll wait for an update on that as well. Man, playing on one knee, the number 2 quarterback. It's the cook, Chef Cookus. Let the man cook. 16 of 23, 166, 2 touchdowns, four carries, 16 yards, no turnovers. You really like that Cook has had the ability to just kind of run the offense. He's still learning it, still getting comfortable in it. And I kind of like that they kept throwing the ball a little bit towards the end because you got to get those reps in. And I'd like to believe that's why Holtz was doing it. I know there was stuff with the beard. I found that adorable, especially with Devin Gardner out there in Michigan State green. But Cook has had command over the offense. Real bad field position for him at some point. Couldn't really let it go. That offensive line is so bad. And it's such a shame because they've gotten they've had 2 quarterbacks hurt. They've dealt with injuries. To be fair, both of those times they got hit and injured, the quarterbacks were out of the pocket on RPOs. So I roll back that statement a little bit. But, Deontay Brown looking like he's struggling. Barry Wesley's struggling. Alex Taylor's struggling. No Cole Schneider there. Darius Harper looks lost. And they get rid of Grant Miller. Miller's, comes back after a little stint with the Panthers. Maybe give him an opportunity to work in the interior. Cole Schneider obviously not there. It's disingenuous to Cook. It's disingenuous to Peasley. We saw Alex Magoo run for 89 yards because of the offensive line play. Cook has ran for 83 the week before. Cookus is got 100 yards rushing in 2 games. Corral was the leading rusher for them at one point. Like to see him work the ball a little bit to CJ Marable. Finally using Jay Sternberger a little bit in the red zone. Jordan Thomas in the red zone. Wouldn't mind seeing some more Marlon Williams, but this team's got weapons upon weapons. Cook is capable. He's able to make these throws. Let the boy cook. Let him continue. But this week, number 2 QB, I feel pretty comfortable about that. I think at this point, no matter what he does, unless he has a multi-interception game, I'm just going to leave him at number 1. It is so easy to do quarterback rankings with Bryce Perkins is playing because he's number 1 guy, man. Some plays he looks like Lamar Jackson. Other plays he looks like Josh Allen. The rush he got hurt on, something else. Moving around, avoided 4 sacks. One of the, DC comes in, one of the best defenses. Man looks silly. Just a pleasure to watch because we're not going to see it next year. We're not. This guy's going to be with the Ravens, man. He's either going to be with the Ravens or if Tyrod Taylor gets hurt, he's going to the Jets. I bookmarked that. Ravens got Cooper Rush and Devin Leary at quarterback. Man, if Mitch Trubisky wasn't up in Buffalo, I'd say he'd be up in Buffalo. Plays, got the one glove like Josh Allen. He could do both. Curious to see, we saw him play in the NFL, how it translates, but it's the game's on easy mode. It's on Magoo mode from 2023. Looks like he's playing, the way Alex Magoo did in 2023. I'd argue it's better competition. But, you got Bryce Perkins out there. The only thing that's going to hurt him is himself, man. I'm ready to see it happen. Really excited to see it happen. Looking forward to his next 4 weeks. And ultimately, it makes the Panthers that much better. So we'll see. That's going to be their kind of bugaboo for me is like, can they get over the Stallions? Can they beat them? We're not sure. Overall, really complete team, weapons upon weapons, utilizing the tight ends. I think Hikatini and Oaks both had over 40 yards receiving this week. I know Hikatini had the touchdown. Oaks was pretty close to one himself. The only thing Bryce Perkins does that scares me is he throws really cross body a lot. I know a lot of people say his hurdles and everything. I mean that's just part of his game. But him throwing across body, rolling out to the right, and throwing across, that's not really my jam. He can do it at this level. Curious to see how that translates to the NFL. Plot twist, it doesn't. But absolute pleasure to watch. Best player in the league. MVPerkins. I'd say you get an offensive player of the week. 3 touchdown performance, 13 of 18, 188, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 9 carries, 75 yards, 1 touchdown. Man, I want to see one of these quarterbacks get over 100 yards. I think that'd be pretty cool. Weird stat line there. I like that. So that wraps it up for our week 6 going into week 7 quarterback rankings. As always, guys, let me know who's too high, who is too low, and where I jacked up. Guys, if you're new here, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Make sure you drop a comment, like, subscribe, share it with a friend. Might as well. I'm probably the coolest guy on the internet in this UFL space. So you might as well just let people know. Channel's growing. Videos are doing well. I'll continue to do them. But until next week, guys, thank you for doing it. Apologize this came out a day late. Needed a day to recover. Busy work schedule. I'm glad I'm here for you. Once again, leave something in the comments for me, man. I'm very responsive. But until next time, thank you.